So I think when we start to piece some of these things together, there's reasons why some of the greatest journalists, greatest historians, greatest lawyers, and thinkers of all time have stopped and been like, wow, there's a powerful case that Jesus lived, died, buried, and appeared to people on the third day.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Awesome. Well, today we're tackling a pretty significant event, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But, and here's the twist, we're going to be looking at it from a unique perspective.
Should be interesting.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah.
We're using this source called A Baha'i Response to the Resurrection of Jesus Christ. And let me tell you, it offers a whole new way of understanding this pivotal moment.
A fresh perspective is always good.
Absolutely. So before we get too deep into it, I think it's important to lay some groundwork. You know, the Baha'i faith, it has a deep respect for Jesus and his teachings.
Right. It's not about dismissing Christian beliefs at all.
Exactly. It's more about adding another layer of understanding, seeing things from a different angle. So let's jump into that. How does the Baha'i faith actually view the resurrection?
Well, they see it primarily as a symbolic event.
It's symbolic, eh?
Yeah, the focus is more on the impact it had on the disciples, on how it influenced the spread of Jesus' message, rather than just the physical act of rising from the tomb.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this new lens works. But can we break down that symbolic meaning a bit more? What does the tomb represent in this whole picture?
Think about the disciples when they first discovered the empty tomb. Their world had been completely shattered, right? They were overcome with grief and loss. The tomb becomes a symbol of that despair.
I get it, like a physical representation of their hopelessness.
Exactly. And then, boom, resurrection happens. It's like this sudden burst of hope emerging from that darkness.
Wow, that imagery is powerful. The tomb is despair, and then the resurrection is this incredible surge of hope. So where does the concept of quickening fit into all of this? I saw that mentioned in the source.
Good catch. So Abdu'l-Baha, a really important figure in the Baha'i faith, he described the resurrection as the quickening of the disciples' spirits.
Interesting. What does that actually mean?
It's like they were, jolted out of that despair, infused with a new sense of purpose, like a spiritual jumpstart.
It's almost like a rebirth, isn't it?
Exactly. And that newfound energy, that's what propelled them to go out and spread Jesus' teachings.
You know, it's making me think about those times in our own lives when we experience something similar, those moments where we come out of a really tough time with a renewed sense of hope, almost like a personal resurrection.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have those moments, right? Where we kind of emerge from a difficult period and suddenly we have this new clarity, a new sense of purpose. And the Baha'i teachings would say that's the spirit of the resurrection at work, reminding us of the transformative power of faith.
That's a really beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's where things get even more interesting for me. The source also mentions that Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, he believed that religious texts often use metaphor and symbolism. So are they suggesting that the resurrection didn't literally happen?
It's not so much about denying the literal interpretation. It's more about encouraging us to dig deeper, to understand the spiritual truths behind these stories. For them, the true power of the resurrection is in its spiritual influence, the transformation it ignited in people's hearts and minds.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about the physical act itself, but about the lasting spiritual impact.
Exactly.
You keep mentioning the disciples' transformation, but I have to ask, were they really that transformed? I mean, didn't they still struggle with doubts and fears? How does the Baha'i faith address that?
That's a great question. And yeah, you're right. Spiritual growth, it's a journey. It's not like the resurrection flipped a switch and suddenly they were perfect. The Baha'i faith acknowledges that.
So it's more about the spark it ignited, the strength it gave them to confront those doubts and fears.
Right. The resurrection gave them the courage and the determination to keep going, to share Jesus' message, even when it was difficult.
And let's be real, they faced some serious persecution for their beliefs.
Absolutely. Despite that, they went out there and spread the message of Christ fearlessly. Their courage and the rapid spread of Christianity, those are pretty powerful testaments to the impact of the resurrection, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And here's something the source pointed out that I found really interesting. It said that whether we take the resurrection literally or symbolically, both Christian and Baha'i perspectives find value in it.
Totally. They both see it as a celebration of spiritual victory over despair. It's this incredible call to faith, hope, and love. Those are universal messages. You know, they resonate with everyone, regardless of your specific beliefs.
Absolutely. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
The Baha'i perspective on the resurrection, it gives us a really thought-provoking way to look at this event. It shifts the focus from the physical to the spiritual, reminding us that true faith has this power to bring hope and renewal even in the darkest of times.
I love that. And as we close, is there a final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Definitely. I want to encourage everyone to think about how this symbolic interpretation might change how you view other religious stories. How can we apply this lens of spiritual meaning to events in our own lives? Where do you see these kinds of resurrections of spirit and hope happening in the world today?
Those are some powerful questions to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.